Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week, we got Logan, Ricky from the MMG squad. We have Alan, managing partner, owner of Protein House. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I feel like we've already had quite the discussion at the kitchen table, and now we've moved out to the garage. And I feel like you have quite a decorated past in the fitness space.
Yeah.
So I was just saying that Ricky's going to have to help me out because we were using a lot of letters. I didn't know what they were inside. I've heard them before. I just don't know what they all stand for. So maybe we can educate some people on that too.
Okay.
But where did your journey start in fitness?
In fitness?
Yeah.
So when I was 14 years old, I kind of started lifting, wrestled in high school, kind of got into bodybuilding a little bit then. All the way through my 20s, I kind of was active in it. And then I took kind of hiatus, I think around my late 20s. Metabolism caught up to me. I actually put on a whole lot of weight, got fat, was in a bad relationship. And actually the day that I broke up with that girl, got back in the gym, and I've got a picture of it. I was overweight at that time, and that was about 8 years ago, and I've never looked back. Got into bodybuilding, started competing.
I feel like that's how a lot of fitness
life,
journeys start.
Breakups build bodybuilders.
Yeah. Yep. Big fact.
Well-known fact in the fitness community.
You want to become a bodybuilder? Get a gnarly breakup.
Have a bad breakup.
So 14, 15 years old, though, what made you want to be in the gym?
You know what? Honestly, I just kind of wanted to be a little bit bigger. I've always thought it was cool, watching the old Conan movies, stuff like that, people that had muscles. I thought it was pretty interesting. And we had a gym just down the street at the hospital. And so my parents got me a membership. I was able to walk there. It was about a mile. And I went there every day for a whole summer. Came back the next year, and I put on about 15 pounds in one summer. And people didn't recognize me, and I got a lot of attention for it. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And
They're like, man, we didn't know Alan had a bigger brother.
So you get into fitness at that point. Are you enjoying it on a sports side? Is it the attention side? What is it that keeps that drive going in fitness? Because I feel like people get that fuel under them that later on in life, it was the bad breakup. What was that fuel at that time to keep pushing? What was that goal that you were going after?
So I'd say now the biggest push for me and where it's come, it started with the breakup, but honestly for me, it's a stress reliever. It's what helps center me. If I don't have the gym, I can have a rough day, I can have a lot going on, and I can listen to my music and I can drop everything. So for me, more than the competing, more than attention, anything else, I think for me, it helps center me. It helps me kind of find my balance in the day. And I love the way I feel afterwards. I think everybody knows your endorphins get going, all of your, everything gets going when you leave the gym, and that pump, makes you feel good when you leave. So that's actually what drives me now to do it, is just to feel good.
I think that's a high that a lot of people chase. That it's something I got into it in high school, and then college I lived in the gym in college. That was my favorite place to be. It was, I don't know, I feel like you can shut the world out.
You can.
It becomes just you versus you. And I feel like that you learn discipline there. I feel like you learn a lot when it's just you versus you.
Yep.
And I think doing that in college, what was that point that you decided that you're like, hey, I want to go compete? This is something that I enjoy doing, but I think I can take it to a different level, and I want to compete doing it.
I think that comes from living in Vegas, is where I was at when I was the breakup and got into the gym. Bodybuilding is really big in Vegas. A lot of competitors, a lot of coaches out there. And I started catching notice from other people in the gym that just realized that I had great dedication. I was in there every single day. They saw how hard I worked out. They saw the changes that were happening in me. And I actually had some people approach me and say, hey, have you ever thought about competing? And, it never crossed my mind. I just enjoyed going to the gym. I liked the way I felt. And from that point, those couple of people that approached me convinced me, and I grabbed a coach and said, hey, let's give it a shot. I've lost a lot of weight. This would just be kind of a cool notch on the belt to go and compete. And I thought it would be a one-time thing, and then it's turned into, it was one of those. I love doing it and just kept doing it.
So what's the big difference? So there's a lot of people that work out all the time. What is that big difference from going from I'm in the gym every day, I'm busting my ass, this is what I'm doing, to then having a coach? Like, what does that transition look like?
So the biggest thing with the coach is the accountability. When you're just going for yourself, you enjoy it. The accountability that you with the coach when you know that you have to check in and they can tell whether you've been following a diet or not. Because the gym part's never been difficult. Honestly, I don't get the coach for the gym side of it. I'll go no matter what every single day. Rain or shine, I'll be in the gym. But when it comes to the diet is actually, like people say, 80% of it. 20% is the gym. And that's to me where the coach really helps you go into a show is, what does it take to get to single digit body fat? What does it take to, with your diet and having that accountability that you check in with a coach where they can say, hey, I can tell you haven't been following your diet this week.
And the difference between beach lean and stage lean is massive.
Yes.
Like it's a completely different workload that goes into getting stage lean.
Yeah, the most work I'd say of anything I've done in my entire life is when you compete for a show. So the amount of things that you have to be doing perfect on a daily basis, weekly basis, all the way leading up to it. It's pretty. I love it though. That's kind of what drives me to do it is seeing yourself and pushing yourself that hard.
What body fat are you stepping on the stage at?
So stepping on stage, I usually don't get anything below 6%. Is about the lowest I've ever gotten. I know everyone's bodies are a little bit different, and some can get a little bit lower, down to maybe the 3, 4, 5%. But 6 for me is, I can't go any lower than that.
Nice.
And then off season, I usually don't go much higher than 15% is about where I go in off season.
See, I really struggle around Christmas time. I like them little Debbie Christmas trees too much.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think diet. Anyone in fitness knows that diet is where it comes from.
Yep.
And that is the hardest.
It's the hardest part, though.
That is so hard to be disciplined on diet. And I'll say I'm guilty of it.
Everyone loves to eat.
I know.
It's
definitely a guilty pleasure. So you get into competing. What does that look like when you start competing? Like, when was the first time you stepped on stage?
So February of 2017 was the first time I stepped on stage. And that show, I got all the way down. To give you an example, so it was about a year and a half of prepping from when I was overweight in the breakup. I was at 230 pounds and about 37% body fat is where I started at.
Wow.
And in a year and a half, I got down to 167 pounds and 6% body fat when I did my first show.
Damn.
Wow.
So I'd lost a total of 63 pounds in a year and a half, got down to that. And then I've done 12 shows since. And now my stage weight sits right around like 200, a little over 200 pounds. So about 30 pounds of muscle in 7 years.
Okay. So
every year, about 4 or 5 pounds a year that I kind of put on in muscle.
So when did you transition? So we were talking about the pro card and everything in there. That's when we started getting into all the different letters you guys were throwing out there. For Ricky was talking about something else. But so what does that look like getting a pro card? And so, I liked your story, too, about how you got it. Like, that was...
Okay. Get into that. So to get a pro card, you have to, at an amateur show, you usually have to place in an amateur show, top 2 in an amateur show. I think sometimes, I can't remember, it used to be top 5. I think they changed it to top 2 to get less people going to them. So you place first or second in an amateur show, you've qualified for nationals. And then you have to go to a national show. There's several of them throughout the year, and everybody at the national show has gotten first or second at a regional show. And then you go into that show, and you have to place, again, it depends on, you have to get usually either just first or second in that show to win your pro card. And then once you've won your pro card, you have it for life. You renew it every year. But you can never compete in any other league other than the IFBB, which is the name of the league that I compete in. You can't go to other leagues and you can't compete as an amateur ever again. Once you're a pro, you're a pro. And kind of a little bit about that story was kind of cool. Got it back in 2020 during COVID. My wife actually got her pro card with me, and it was crazy. I mean, the show almost didn't happen. They set it up in a tent down the street in the rain. We had to bus us down to the tent, and it was just the judges. So we went out there, got on stage, judges, got off stage, and then we got back on stage about 20 minutes later and did finals and ended up getting our medals and winning our pro cards. And so my wife got hers on a Tuesday. 2 days later, I got mine on a Thursday. So it was a pretty cool experience getting them together.
That's
Way to follow it up after those 2 days of thinking about how
Man,
she was the only pro in the family.
It was a lot of pressure. Yeah, that's for sure.
At least it's too bad she wasn't there to be able to cheer you on, because it was just the judges out there.
Yeah, just the judges. We live streamed it. I mean, if I had a video of how loud I was when she won her pro card, I mean, everybody in the whole hotel heard me. I was running around. It was pretty exciting.
I'm trying to picture what that must have looked like from you standing up there on stage. Was it? I guess they didn't even have any seats. It was just open tent.
No
and then
seats.
The judges,
So
they were probably like.
Yeah, they had the
spaced
stage.
out.
They had the lights on us, so it felt like you're on a normal stage. And then they just had like a table about this size that we're at here, like a long, maybe 10-foot table. Had the judges there, a panel like 6 judges, all sitting there with their pads judging us, and that was it. There was no crowd. I mean, like I said, it was kind of a blur. I don't even remember if there was music or not. I'm sure there was, but it was definitely the weirdest experience as far as competing. But it was also pretty cool.
I think we shift the table sideways. We can do bodybuilding competition.
Just right out there.
We got the lighting for it.
We just flip the lights around. We're ready to ride. So you get your pro card. What does progression look like after that?
In the pro. So now in the pro league, you save a little bit of cost. Once you get your pro card for the year, you still have to pay every year to get your pro card. You renew it every year. You don't pay entry fees in shows anymore. So whereas that's a pretty big expense as an amateur, especially if you're doing multiple different classes. Now all you have to do when you compete, take care of your tan, which when you've been doing it as long as I have been, you switch from getting the spray tans to you actually just buy the pro tan. And my wife gets a mitt and we put it on and it saves a whole lot of money. So now the competing becomes a lot cheaper so that you can do more shows as a pro.
It also saves a lot of headache too. Like getting a spray tan for a show, that's a process.
It is. You got to go the night before. You get 2 coats. Then you got to sleep in it and make sure you don't mess up the sheets. Then the next morning, you go get another coat super early in the morning before stage. It's a lot of work.
It is.
So,
It's just everything you touch turn orange or what?
pretty much.
I mean, you really just try
usually,
not to.
usually, I mean, you sleep in a long sleeve shirt. You sleep in like pajama pants. And you put black sheets on everything. You have black sheets that you can don't worry about if you're at a hotel. And yeah, that's.
So how many shows have you done since you got your pro card?
So I have done 2 shows.
2 shows
since I got my pro card. I did one the year following getting my pro card in Arizona, and I came in second to last place. I got my butt kicked in that one. By the way, I also reiterate, there is Masters Pro shows and there's Open Pro shows. So Open goes all the way up till 35. And then 35 and up, there's a 35 and up where you compete against just Masters. So I did an Open show for my first pro show. And by the way, I'm 39, almost 40. So I was going against a bunch of 20-year-olds and they kicked my butt. But it was a good eye-opener. And so I took another year off. And then I did another show the following year in Reno. Did a little bit better there. I came in 9th place out of 16 guys. So kind of like in the middle of the pack there. And then I've decided since then, that was October of last year. I've taken this entire last year to continue to grow, develop. And then next year I plan on doing, depending on how the first show goes, I actually kind of want to do like 5 or 6 shows next year. And I truly believe I can come in like top 5 next year and actually start placing. So we'll see.
Badass.
Man, 3 years
awesome.
from your first show to going pro is insane, though. That's fast, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, no. Sorry, that's since I've been a pro.
No, I mean, like, you started
3 years. Yeah.
2017.
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
And that's
3 years.
fast.
It is. And I got it at my first national show. And by the way, the national show, there are people that never get their pro cards. And there are people I've met that it's taken them 10, 12, 15, national shows. Like I said, you're going against some of the top people in the U.S. and you have to get first or second to get your pro card. I mean, so.
And you also, it's not like you know who's going to be showing
don't know
up,
who's gonna show up.
or what kind of shape they're going to show up in.
And so I see it all the time, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, you see people that put in all the blood, sweat, tears. They do the prep. They spend all the money. They get the coach. and they miss it by like one place, and they got to wait and prep till the next year and try again. And so, I was pretty fortunate to get it as quick as I did.
Do you think in the bodybuilding space, is there a spot where genetics plays a role?
For sure.
Because I feel like there's some people you look at and that just their body proportion is like unreal.
Yeah, I think for sure everybody has different muscle bellies. Everyone has different symmetry in their body. Some of it comes from genetics, some of it comes from the way the person works out. But I agree. I think, if you're naturally gifted, you have good symmetry and you have good muscle bellies, you're definitely going to progress a little bit quicker and have an advantage. It doesn't mean that somebody who's not, gifted couldn't do it. I've seen people that aren't gifted do extremely well. It's just, a little bit more work.
I've seen some guys that I knew in college and stuff that just, trained their asses off, but it was just like you look at their body shape and everything, and it just wasn't right for what. And they out-trained me every day at the gym, and they out-trained a lot of guys that were in a lot better shape than them.
Yep.
But it was just like they ate clean 24/7. They did all the right things, but it was just like they didn't have
the genetics do matter. They do,
and I do think that plays a part. That there's some dudes that are just like you look at them, and they're
very gifted and
chiseled out of stone, and they're eating fried chicken and whatever they want half the time. But
I know some guys that will train they just train their face off. It's the only thing they care about. They do whatever it takes, like nutrition wise, cardio wise, run everything under the sun, and then they still just don't look good.
And they don't. Yep.
It's just like like you were saying, the muscle belly shape and muscle insertions and proportions.
Some of that beyond the genetics, when I say the training, and some people just don't get this, or they haven't had. The way you train matters too when it comes to the shape of the bellies and everything else in a body. That's why training to be a power lifter is different than training to be a bodybuilder or training to be a men's physique competitor. So when you're trying to go for fullness and the shape of the bellies and aesthetics, a lot of times that runs into a lot more volume. It runs into a lot higher. You're still lifting heavy, but it's a lot more volume, a lot of 15 to 20 reps, not running 6 to 8 reps. And then that's what kind of tones the bellies. So sometimes I see guys where they just train heavy all the time, and they never change the training to like a higher volume. And then the muscle bellies never shape. And that, in my opinion, is when I see sometimes guys where they look like they're doing all the work. Sometimes the training isn't the right way to get their muscle bellies to kind of create that shape that they're looking for. Which is why you'll also never see a power lifter or a CrossFit, some of them that have the muscle bellies the right shape, because they're using different fibers. They're doing a different way of lifting.
Do you think a lot of people in, all forms of working out plateau pretty hard doing the same thing just over and over and over? Because I see some people that, they've been working out forever and they've never changed something. I've always been somebody that I like to change rep count very much.
Yes.
That I feel like it shocks my body back into something that I could be working out for 4 weeks and not be sore, and go change rep count drastically and go from 6 to 8 reps to 20 reps. And then the next day I'm like, why can I not walk? And do you think that is really important with
Very important. And that's what I was saying. I think a lot of people don't do that enough. I do see a lot of people just kind of do the same thing. They always think they have to lift as heavy as possible. I think changing the rep in the off season, I lift more like a power lifter. I go as heavy as I can. I get to that 4 to 6 rep range. I'm trying to push the weights and increase it every single week. But then, like I said, I only do that in the off season for a short amount of time. But then early on when I start prepping for a show, I drastically start changing it to that 8 to 10. And then from the 8 to 10, I'll switch it to that 16 to 20. And then I'll drop it back down to the 8. I change those rep ranges, but by adding, and I'll add more volume, not just the rep ranges. So I'll go from 3 sets to doing 6 to 8 sets. And a lot of people I don't think ever do that. They just stick with that 3 or 4 set. That's the traditional do 3 sets. You notice a big change in your body if you do that exact same exercise, but you do 6 or 8 sets of that exact same exercise. People don't realize that makes a big difference in the muscle belly and the amount of fullness you can get into it.
For sure.
It's the classic. Some guy goes in there every single morning, is just doing the 3 sets of 10 with the 25-pound dumbbells on curls.
Yep. They track it and they increase the weight, and they'll see progress. But
hopefully they're increasing the weight.
But
some guys, I feel like they're just grabbing the same thing, not even thinking about
same
it.
Thing. Yeah.
That's. I'm not like a notebook tracker of my workouts or anything.
I'm not either.
And it's like I've seen people that sit there and like track every single workout, and I've like watched them for years in the gym. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're writing down in there, but I don't think it's working. Like, not in a bad way, but it's like sometimes if I've been in the gym for a few weeks and I don't know, like I haven't been feeling it, like just I feel like I can tell my body of like when I feel like I killed it in the gym, the next 3 days I'm going to know.
Yep.
And it's like sometimes if I'm not feeling that, I have to go and just shock myself into something like something's changing. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to make it so I'm sore this week. So, but
I firmly believe changing it as much as possible. I mean, I do a lot of supersetting and then drop setting, and I have ADHD, so it's real easy for me. I swear every workout I do is a little bit different than the previous workout, and I feel like it works better for me than the people that, like you said, they get the book, they do the same workout every single week, they just slowly make the progression.
yeah,
I mean, they'll get stronger, but I don't feel like the body kind of like shapes the way that they're looking for. I feel like when you change it up as much as possible and keep the body guessing and, mixing up the variety of how you're doing this stuff, I think the body reacts a lot better.
yeah, 100%. So we've progressed through the fitness space. We've progressed through the bodybuilding space. Let's go into the business side.
Okay.
When did you start with Protein House?
So
Actually, what would you do before Protein House?
let me give a little bit of back. So 25 years I've been in restaurants, pretty much all the way in high school and everything else. I'm not going to go through all of that. But I actually ran the flagship Protein House in Vegas. I was the GM of their store for about a year.
And when did that open?
So that one's been open, I believe, about like 11 years or so. Is when the original. And so there's actually two, Larissa Rice and Andy are the two owners out there. They're both in the bodybuilding space. They started it together. I ran their store for a year when I lived in Vegas. And then honestly, they had one store at the time. They were kind of franchising out. It wasn't a big enough company for me. And I left them and went for another company as a district manager and kind of moved on in my restaurant career. But that's kind of what circled me back to where I'm at with Protein House now. I'm friends with the chief operating officer back in Vegas, who's over all the franchisees. And the franchise group out here, who's pretty close with, they called him up and said, hey, we're struggling out here. We're on the verge of closing the doors here. We're losing a ton of money. We don't know what we're doing as far as operating them. Help us. Can you do something for us? And so he worked out a deal, negotiated it, got me out here, was able to get me some ownership, as well as, basically turn the stores around for him. So I came out here October last year, and the stores were all closed on Sunday, and they were only open for lunch. And they were bleeding. I don't even want to throw the number out. It was a lot of money. They were losing money on a monthly basis, and they were struggling to keep the doors open. So we've got them back open full hours, fully staffed, running the way that they should. And we're doing more sales than they've ever done previously in the Power and Light store has been there about 7 years. And so, we're headed the right direction now. So it's been a little bit over a year I've been with them though.
Very cool. So in that progression through the restaurant space and learning that, what would you say, like, so if you come in and these locations aren't dialed in, they're not running operating, like anyone off the street come in and say, hey, open up more hours, do this, like what were some of those key points that you had to put in place that are like, okay, these are things that are going to move the needle forward to make this towards profitable again?
So the first thing, I mean, they needed direction and leadership. They basically just had the employees running the store and doing whatever they wanted. So, putting in some structure back in place. And for me to be able to see there were some people that were toxic to the work environment that needed to leave at all the stores. I had to let some people go. We had to bring some people in that cared about it. That was the number one thing, to be able to even, get the hours right and get the customer service right. But then it was a lot of the little things, they weren't paying attention to, just because they're not from restaurants. They were spending way too much money on their linen. They were paying for, dish TV when they didn't really need it. We're not a restaurant that necessarily needs to be spending, $400 a month on having dish TV and having all the football games. People don't come into Protein House for that. So we were able to, a lot of the small stuff we were able to kind of cut back on and reduce. A lot of waste though was going on.
Yeah. And I think as a business owner, it's really easy to put money out, and tracking that money all the time of saying like, hey, really what is going out, what is needed, what isn't needed. Yeah. Like that's a hard line to play, that you could have an employee and they're like, why did we get rid of dish? I liked watching the game when I was working. And it's like, well, that's not why you're here. And so it's just like, it's always something. And when you're running those, but from that higher level, like those are things that have to be watched. And from a leadership side, what do you do as a leader to make those people like, hey, this is the guy we're going to follow. This is our ride or die. We chase him into a fire. Like, what are those principles that you run on?
I got a lot of it from my dad. Who's no longer with us, but I believe firmly in servant leadership. So from him, I get my hands dirty. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've worked my way up from the bottom to get to where I'm at in restaurants, and I firmly believe that people are willing to be ride or die for you, do whatever you want if you're willing to get your hands dirty and get right in there. So my leadership style was very hands-on. I've been at all 3 stores. I still currently am in the store all day, every day. I'm in Overland Park every day. I get in there and I get my hands dirty. I'll jump in the kitchen. I take orders. I make the shakes. I go out and check on the guests and I show them what I expect. And it just catches, it makes my life easier. Instead of just having to manage people see what I'm doing. I'm able to show them how clean I want the restaurant, how I want to treat the customers, how I want the food to look. And they gravitate towards that, and they respect the fact that I treat them as human beings, and I give them that autonomy, to basically be able to make decisions within the restaurant as well. I don't micromanage.
Yeah, I think I see that a lot in the restaurant space for sure, is where people are being micromanaged like crazy, but they also don't have that leadership for somebody to follow. They don't know how clean the restaurant's supposed to be. They don't know how to talk to customers. They don't know what needs to be done in the kitchen, to where it's like putting those things into place of like, hey, this is what it looks like and this is what needs to be done. And it's like, I feel like it's setting that standard.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of people don't have a standard out there to go after.
And sometimes it's not the employees like ill intent that they're like, oh, I'm not going to follow the standards. If it's never placed to begin with, they just don't, they don't know what kind of level they're supposed to work up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, 100% fair point. I think that's the crazy thing of scaling in business is when you can take a step back and understand that not everyone knows exactly what's supposed to be. In your head, it can be super clear. And like, I'm guilty of it where I'm like, it's super clear up here. I'm like, why doesn't everyone like understand what I'm thinking? But it's like, it may have taken me months to get to that conclusion in my head. And then all of a sudden, like the second I get it, I'm wondering why everyone else didn't come up with that. Like, or why they're not on the same page. But it's when you start putting that out there and you're like, hey, this is why I got to this. This is why we need to do X, Y, and Z. Like when anyone comes into your restaurant, if it's their first time, first impressions are everything at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I go into a restaurant that's dirty, I'm probably not coming back again.
Yeah, that's my first thing.
It is like, and I don't know how.
I know it might not be everyone, but I agree. For me, the restaurant's got to be clean, and that makes a big difference.
But it's like, so go down the street and ask 100 random people, hey, if you went into a dirty restaurant, would you come back? I guarantee you're going to get 50 to 60% of people like, no.
Yep.
I may be totally off on that. I don't know. But like,
I believe it.
I'm thinking a large portion of people I know would say they're not coming back.
Yeah.
To where then people working in a restaurant would probably agree with that too, but then they have a dirty restaurant. And I'm like, how do you not think about this from like every single day? Any business owner needs to be putting themselves in the consumer's shoes.
Yeah.
What does it look like the second you walk in here?
Yeah.
Like you go in some place and they have shit taped everywhere. Like just random shit taped everywhere. Like bathroom's been out of order for 4 weeks.
The paper's like all crinkled up. And it's like they reused the same paper like 12 times.
And you're like, I can see that's been hanging up, and it's like distressed now from being in the window, and the sun has like discolored it. Like how long has that been up? And like nobody working there has that standard to say, hey, you know what, we should take that down. Or hey, maybe we should print a new one. Like just those kind of things, like I feel like all those small things add up to the big win.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have a phenomenal product. Like,
oh, thank you.
No questions asked on that. And I feel like you guys are in kind of a lane of your own in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Especially in Kansas City.
Especially out here. I mean, it's gotten pretty big out on the West Coast, honestly. Like back in Vegas, Protein House was even kind of the front runner out there. But now there's a dime a dozen. There's probably, I could think of probably 6 other concepts that are similar. But they took it all from what Protein House was doing. I think, really they were kind of like the front runners, and it's catching, a lot of, in the West Coast, there's a lot of them, but out here in the Midwest, I agree. It's kind of a newer thing. It hasn't really caught,
If you're gonna figure out here in the Midwest, we're about 10 years behind on everything that we do. We got in the marketing space. Everyone thought that we were like super cutting edge, and they're like, "Oh my god, like you guys are doing video work all the time, like that's crazy." I'm like, like everyone is doing this shit on the coast. Like no one around here is doing it, and it's just like you can take it from whatever industry you want. Look at the car industry, the way that they run and operate car dealerships here, to the way they do it on the
10
coast.
years behind them.
Like so far behind, and it's like when I was in the car business, people were like, what made you think of this? I'm like, I don't watch dealerships around here. I'm like, I'm just watching what they're doing on the coast. And it's like, I feel that fitness space is bigger towards the coast for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely moving this direction.
But it's coming out here.
I think it's coming this way. And I think you're going to be the front runners still here. And I think you're way ahead of the curve in what it is.
Thank you.
But
Are you from Vegas?
No, I was actually born in Minnesota.
Gotcha.
And I've lived everywhere. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in Kansas and Wichita, Atlanta,
whoa, Kansas guy.
Dallas,
Wichita's
Texas,
barely Kansas.
Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake City, and Vegas.
You've been all. Which one's your favorite?
My favorite places, I like Dallas a lot when I was there. Vegas, I've got a lot of good friends there. I didn't really like the city that much, but I mean, there's a lot of cool people in Vegas that I met there. And then Boise, Idaho is actually a pretty cool little gem up there. It's kind of a very fast growing city. A lot of people, and it's a weird mix. You've got a lot of people from California coming up there. So it's got that like West Coast feel, but it's also very rural up in the mountains. And that was kind of a cool place.
So were you
And I like it here so far. Honestly, it's been a good experience here so far.
So where was all that travel between? Was that with the district manager position at the restaurant group after the first protein house?
No, so some of it was with my dad when I was a kid, kind of
Gotcha.
switching jobs. We kind of moved around a little bit as I was a kid. And then, yes, in restaurants, I've been with my wife 5 years. Before that, no kids, not married. So, yeah, in the restaurant industry, even when I was just a general manager, they would always, hey, we're opening up a new market. We're doing something new here. And I was always the one that said, hey, pay me more money. I'll go there. Yeah. And so I kind of moved around quite a bit with restaurants. I left out. I was in D.C. and I was in Atlanta. Those are two other places I was in.
God dang.
But a lot of that with restaurants.
You have one of them like cork boards? You got a little pin everywhere. Hey, you know what? I haven't worked in Alabama. Send me there.
What was the biggest difference between Protein House, other than just having more locations, but Protein House when you worked there the first time versus once it was grown up a little bit and you came back?
So I think the coolest part about it now, working with this franchise group and being out here, is I have a little bit more, ability to make some differences and make some changes. There, it was I'll be honest, it was difficult because it was just one store that they had there, and the owner, I'll leave out that, were a little bit micromanaging. They were very controlling of things, and I had been running restaurants my whole life, and there was a little bit of like disagreements where I wanted to make a lot of changes. I wanted to make things better, in my opinion, there. And I got a lot of kickback. I was told, this is the way we do it. This is the way and so I felt very stuck there. So that's the biggest difference now that I'm an owner out here, got more stores, obviously, and the company changing. I love that I can make the differences that I want to make. I can put systems in place and no one's telling me, no, you can't put these systems in place. I'm able to, make a lot more of a difference.
Were the owners in Vegas at the store daily and like super involved, or?
So they had an office right above the store.
Oh. So pretty close.
So pretty close. They would come down randomly all throughout the day, and so it was definitely interesting working with them, and especially because neither one of them are from restaurants at all. Larissa Rice is from Brazil. She was a bodybuilder, very well known model, nothing to do with restaurants. And Andy came from, I think, medical sales. So neither one of them knew a thing about restaurants. So it would get a little bit frustrating, but they're both very opinionated, so they would come in and they would want things a certain way. And I would try to say, hey, I've been doing restaurants a long time. There's a better way we could do this. And it was very hard for us to kind of see eye to eye on things. But like I said, I always loved the concept when I was with them back in Vegas. Even when I left, it was a hard thing because to be honest, most of the places I've worked, most restaurants have not been healthy food, and I've, always kind of cared about my health. So I'd bring food to work, and it was kind of cool working at a place that I could actually eat at work.
I'm just not picturing it like you show up, all the food's everywhere there in the kitchen, and you've got like your lunchbox of your chicken and rice or whatever you're actually going to eat because you just can't eat any of the other stuff at the restaurant.
Well, let me add in some preface. So 8 years, I worked for Smashburger.
Oh, man.
And for 3 years, I worked for The Habit, which is a California-based, kind of like Five Guys, kind of like Smashburger as well.
Yeah.
So 11 years of my career, I worked for like burger joints, which I love burgers, but I cannot eat burgers every day and look the way that I look. And so, I would bring my meal prep in and I would go heat it up on the flat top, or, and then I would end up. And
I
so
bet that's probably pretty good.
And it was good, but it sucked. That's one of the perks when you work for a restaurant is getting free food.
I'm picturing
a restaurant and then to have to go in and I would, have to bring my own food in. So working for Protein House is phenomenal that I can stay on my diet. I can be proud of what I'm eating, proud of what I'm serving. Like I said, Habit and the Smashburger, I knew it tasted good, but I wasn't proud of that. I'm not making people healthy every day when I'm serving it. So it's
He's like, this dude that's 500 pounds doesn't need another Smashburger.
I can't imagine being mid-prep, like just when your carbs are real low, you feel like shit, and then you go into work all day, every single day.
I think that's probably just straight up torture.
That's incredible.
I'm telling you, that's probably the hardest part about being a competitor. Like I said, and most of it was while I was at Smashburgers when I first started competing. And you just nailed it on the head going in there and just smelling bacon and burgers and watching it all day.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you talk to people that work in restaurants, though, when you're around it like all day, every day, you kind of, it just gets like, it doesn't make you hungry. You just get kind of numb to it. It's kind of a different.
It's just the aroma.
But it was definitely tough.
So you hit there on wanting to put systems and processes in place.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we're going through right now as a company. And it's something that I think, companies at scale, that's something that you always have to keep an eye on, is getting better processes, better systems put in place. What are some of the processes that, like, right when you come out the gate, you come here to, it's Iowa, Kansas City, OP. So you come in right out the gate. What were some processes that you saw that you're like, hey, this needs to be fixed, or this system needs to be fixed? Or were they already pretty dialed in as being a franchise?
No, unfortunately, the support system that they were getting from corporate, I'm not going to lie. I think they were originally given stuff, but none of it was being followed. So, it was getting them back on using opening checklists, closing checklists, just the small, having a system for making sure that the money at the end of the night was correct. They didn't have any kind of logs. There was no verifying, who put the money there. Is it there the next day? Just small stuff like that. I think the systems used to be in place at some point, obviously being a franchise, but throughout time, they kind of just lost some of those systems. So immediately coming in and just getting people back used to, hey, there are good systems that we can put in place that make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing.
And I think sometimes people think about putting systems in place and think that they just run by themselves forever. And they will stop. And unless you have to keep feeding them to say hey, this is something that is a requirement. And
it's
if
important.
People have to be doing this. If not, then what's the disciplinary action that has to be taken place? Because, things like that in a company, if they're always happening, then it just too much leeway comes. And you talk about there's people in there that were cancer, and you run into those, and it's I just feel like there's so much of that plays into a factor that when you come in, you're just seeing that from being in the restaurant space so much. And you saw how high operating restaurants run and work, that you come in, you're like, these are just the non-negotiables of.
Yeah, these are what you need to do to run a restaurant, and they weren't happening. So it was very easy for me, to be honest, to kind of fix some of the stuff that was going on to get them back on track.
And I think part of that goes to just your depth of knowledge and scope of practice because you've been in the industry so long.
Yeah.
There's people that could come in and they would have no idea what to even look for, but because you've been in it and doing it so often that you come in and it's plain as day. You're like, oh, you got to fix this, and that. And if you don't have the type of background and experience that you have, you're never going to see those things.
I agree. Even down to the P&Ls. We were looking at the finance. The owners are great with their bit, but a P&L in a restaurant is completely different than a P&L in a flooring business. And so, I think immediately coming in, that was the other thing on top of systems that we had to do was pick apart their P&Ls and figure out where the money was going. And the food cost was through the roof. I mean, the labor, some of the numbers did not make sense where you can't make money. But again, if you don't know the restaurant space, I mean, you don't know what you're looking for necessarily. You don't know how much your linen's supposed to be. You don't know how much you're supposed to spend on your operating expenses or your labor, your food cost. And so I agree. I think it's important. Again, I agree. The scope of what my knowledge that I have from other restaurants made it a lot easier for me to kind of come in and say, hey, this is what we need to fix and this is what needs to change to make things better.
And that goes just totally across the board in anything. Same goes to fitness. If you've been working out for 20, 25 years, you could watch somebody do a bench press and you're like, oh, you got to change this, this, and that. Or they're like, oh, my biceps aren't growing, my calves aren't growing. And then you ask them a couple questions and you already have the answer.
Yeah.
Where they could have no idea where to start.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
I think that scope of knowledge goes a long ways in every aspect of life, and that's why there's doctors out there.
Yep.
And I mean, we're not going to do open heart surgery. Like, we don't know how to do it. But there's some guy out there that's done tons of them that he's like, he can do it.
That's a piece of cake for him.
Yeah, I can do that. And it's just like, we deal with it, I feel like, a lot in the marketing space. That everyone that's watched a 5-minute YouTube video thinks that they're a marketer. Or the crazy thing is, people go to college and get marketing degrees that really aren't relevant in today's space. They're being taught by someone that learned marketing in the mid-90s, that the space is completely different now, to where it's
changed a lot.
And it's like a 600-pound person coming that's like on my 600-pound life that's coming up and going to tell you how to work out. Like, I've always had a cardinal rule that I don't listen to people about fitness that aren't in better shape than me. Like, I don't feel like that's crazy. And I've had people look at me like, what? There's people that went to school for dietary whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't care. I'm in better shape than them. So, like,
if they knew their stuff that well, you'd think they'd, I don't know, maybe not be that out of shape.
I see it with trainers all the time. There's people that like, oh, I'm a trainer. I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, you are not good enough shape to be a trainer. But it's like, if you're in the restaurant space, you have that knowledge. If you're in, we're in marketing, we have that knowledge. To where it's like, when we talk about it, you could talk way over my head on the restaurant stuff. You're talking about the opening and closing of tickets. Like, I would come in and be like, I don't know what needs to be put in place. I'd be just like that. The franchisees like, hey, that's why I bought a franchise. You guys are supposed to be giving these to me. I don't know what I'm doing. But I think too many people want to just have that ego that they don't want to ask for help or say like, hey, I don't know how to do that. How can I get better at it?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes if people just took a step back and said, hey, let me ask someone that knows how to do this, they would get a lot farther, a lot quicker. And it was something that took me a little while to learn. Like, in the car business, I wanted to be like, I know it all.
Yeah.
And I was like, after I started asking questions to the right people, I started making a lot more progression a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you also just don't know what you don't know.
100%.
Like, you'd be like, we're not making a ton of money, but we're getting by. We're kind of figuring it out. Customers seem happy, but you could be totally missing the ball on all of it.
And you look at a restaurant, you're like, you don't know what you don't know. And somebody's like, oh, we're getting by. The doors are open, but then it's like you have a Chick-fil-A's over there that are popping up faster than they can build them. I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? Like, they know something. So it's like any vertical that you're in, you don't know what you don't know, but there's something so much bigger that sometimes it's thinking outside the box. That, I mean, that is a place that is built on their process.
Yeah.
Like, it's unreal. Like, they need to go and help out like every sporting event. They need to go put processes in place to move people everywhere. And shit would get done way faster.
They've got it down.
It's crazy that somebody is that much more proficient at something than the next person. Like, you go to some fast food restaurants, you'd be sitting out on the street. I mean, might as well put the car in park, throw up a Netflix movie on your phone. You don't know if you're going to get food today. And there it's like
Chick-fil-A, though, man, they've
efficiency. But and that's what I think is so unique about what you guys are doing, is you're coming from a completely different, like, whole different forefront of where you're at. Like, Protein House, it's like right there in the name. It's like, you want healthy food, that's the spot. Like, we think, like, we take the streetcar right down into Power and Light. We get it down in Kansas City, but it's like, I don't think there's a healthier eating option.
Oh, definitely not in Kansas City downtown. Yeah, I think there's a few kind of healthier out in the suburbs a little bit, but not downtown. There's nothing.
But no, I think it's a.
I was just going to ask when you came in, you talked about the hours a little bit. Was there anything as far as getting more customers in the door that you had to do that was major, or was it mainly just like internal systems and processes that you've talked about?
No, I mean, we did have to get the word out there a little bit just to let people know that we were under some new management and get people back in. Because unfortunately, not just the limited hours, there was also some customer service issues where there were some people that were not willing. I still run into it today, even a year later. Even with I'll be at the gym and I'll run into somebody at Flex and, oh yeah, I used to. When was the last time you went there? Oh, I haven't been there in like 2 years. Oh, what happened? Oh, I had a really bad experience. This happened, and it's like, wait, things are different than they were 2 years ago. Come back in, give us a chance. And so it wasn't just like a flip of a switch, let's get back to our regular hours. We did have to kind of get the word back out there that, hey, things are different than they were. We've kind of fixed things up a little bit. We've improved the customer service. Quality of food's better. Yeah. We're back to regular hours. That really upset people. I think some people, when we went to those limited hours, stopped coming in because they couldn't come in for dinner.
Sure. Yeah. Was there any specific way that you went about doing that, or?
So luckily we did have we do have our loyalty program. Gotcha. So we were able to blast people through that, and through the email system through there. And then a lot of word of mouth. And then we did a little bit through social media as well.
Nice.
Obviously through our Instagram pages, we kind of talked about the extended hours and what was going on.
So I've got two huge questions for you. Huge questions for you.
Huge questions.
First being, they're very similar. First being, you're eating there for breakfast. What's your order?
For breakfast?
For breakfast. Because I feel like we got to do breakfast and a non-breakfast.
Okay.
Got to do them separate.
Okay. Superbird omelet.
So what's in that?
He didn't even think about
that. Was zero hesitation.
You thought that was going to be a big, he was going to be
I do like the pancakes as well. that was my little hesitation, but the Superbird omelet, I think it's the healthiest thing that we have on the menu, but it actually tastes really good. So it's an egg white omelet, and then it's got turkey on it though, and then tomatoes, and then on top it's got a little bit of cottage cheese and some cilantro.
Low key, I just now figured out you guys had breakfast, like right at this moment.
Oh, and we serve it all day.
I didn't know you guys had breakfast.
And our breakfast is huge.
So I've seen it on the menu when I go there at lunch. I didn't know they were actually open for breakfast.
Yeah, we open at 8 a.m. every day.
Oh, shit, dude.
And we serve it all day long, the breakfast.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But it's good. I mean,
you don't know what you don't know, Ricky.
You don't know what you don't know, man.
Well, I mean, we have some of the best protein pancakes. I mean, we make the recipe in-house. So if any of you have ever tried making protein pancakes, they usually are really dry.
You try like really one time, and then you just give up on it.
Most people jump shit pretty fast.
But the recipe that we've got there, because we throw a little yogurt in there and some other, they're actually taste really, really good. I mean, they taste like regular pancakes. Those are good.
How's parking Sitch at 8:30 a.m.?
The parking actually is awesome in the morning. Oh. You can park right on Main Street. No, because when I get there in the morning, there's usually that's not full. So if you ever want to come in for breakfast, the parking isn't bad. You come in later, we'll bring it the Cosentino garage is the place to park, and we do validate.
So, other huge question.
Yes, number 2.
Non-breakfast.
Non-breakfast item, the Muscle Builder Burger.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
Hands down, 2 bison patties, cheddar cheese, turkey bacon, and caramelized red onions.
I had that for the
first time.
Simple,
doesn't even need any sauce.
No.
It's phenomenal.
I had that for the first time last week with the fruit on the side, and I felt like I was at a 4th of July barbecue.
So good.
It was just amazing. Yeah.
And the best part about it, too, for being a double patty burger, it's not heavy. The bison meat that we serve, I mean, it digests really fast, digests well. You don't feel like... I mean, normally when you eat a beef burger afterwards, you feel kind of tired.
He was just talking about all these burgers that you had for years.
But bison meat is different. I can eat bison meat. I eat it almost every day there, and it digests better than beef. I feel like beef kind of gets you that tired, lethargic feeling, like you could feel it sitting in your stomach. But yeah, the bison meat we have is really good. We did actually just recently add, it's pretty good as well, a grass-fed burger. And so it's a grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And it's from the same place that we get same ranch that we get our bison meat from. And that one is actually really, really good too. And as far as beef goes, that one processes, really well in the digestive system.
If you would give me 100 guesses, I would have guessed a burger was not going to be a pig.
You would think not, but I'm telling you that Muscle Builder Burger is
It's fantastic.
Well, let me give you my number 2, which used to be my number 1, and it goes back and forth. The Thai Monster Bowl.
Okay.
So that one's got steak and chicken, asparagus, broccoli, and then it's got our Thai peanut sauce that we make in house, and that stuff is to die for. I mean, it's got a touch of sriracha, a little bit of a kick, but it's sweet also.
Dalton's a big El Jefe guy.
Oh, the Jefe, I love the Jefe.
Yeah.
I think my normal orders, is there a Muscle Boy?
There is a
Or
muscle
something
boy in the
like that? I
breakfast.
like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think I get the bison bowl. Is that thing?
The General.
Yeah, which one has the bison like meat in it?
General Bowl has bison. The Jefe has
Jefe
bison,
does.
and the Boss Bowl has bison.
The Boss Bowl.
With the jalapenos, okay,
Yep.
the Boss Bowl's good.
I just knew it had bison in it.
But I mean, literally, there's probably nothing on the menu that I don't like. Yeah, I know you're
It's all
asking for my
clean,
favorites,
like-
but I like everything on the menu.
I've never, even like the breakfast burritos are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's
like-
2 of them there. He has a steak and a chicken one.
You feel phenomenal afterwards.
I'm pretty excited that I just learned that I had breakfast.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that made the podcast right there.
Yeah. Dalton and I have been there 2 times in the last week, I think. Yeah.
Back in the gym, back to the grind. man.
Yeah. Back in the gym in Protein House.
It's crazy. So my wife and I used to run a few gyms in Kansas City, and fitness has been a part of my life for forever, since like similar time I was 14 when I started going to the gym. I think I had my Fitness Pal in 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to cut down some
I didn't even know it was
pounds.
around that long.
Yeah, he hasn't drank a pop since then either.
I haven't had a pop since 7th grade, but anyways, when we left the gym to join Moss Marketing Group, we kind of just stopped. We just kind of stopped working out, and it was probably a year that I went to the gym, maybe 10% of the days,
I was a bad influence. That's my fault.
which is ironic because I met you at the gym. So
True.
I don't know how that ended up
I don't
happening.
know how
but
that happened.
anyways, though, what I didn't realize until I like got back into the routine of working out is how much it did for me mentally. And I feel like I knew that when I started working out, and then I kind of just lost sight of that.
Forget, yeah.
But if I'm not in the gym, I'm a mess, dude.
I'm a mess. I start. My mental health is not good if I don't get into the gym.
And I think part of it for me is like actually being able to see progress and see it in something that we're spending all day in our bodies, right? So
What?
I hope
yeah,
so.
believe it or not, believe it or not,
You don't leave yours?
I don't.
Dropping
Personally,
Man,
Personally, I don't switch bodies. I just stay in the same one. And you're reminded of that progress literally the entire day.
yeah.
Like you're walking where our office is on the 2nd floor. So we're walking upstairs and I'm like, oh, I think I'm starting to get some quads back and stuff like that. And it's just such a rewarding discipline. And there's so much that people could learn from bodybuilding and just being in the gym and training in general. What are some of the biggest lessons that you feel like you've gotten from training over the last few decades?
discipline. You know, I think for sure, especially the competing and the gym part, because it can translate to anything. I feel like you get that discipline and being able to get into the gym at a certain time, to be able to follow a diet, whatever it is that you have your goals set for. You know, they're not easy to do. And then anything else that you want to do in life, anything in business, anything in your personal life, your relationship, I feel like all of those, it translates into those as well. You know, if you can do it in bodybuilding, you can do it anywhere else in your life, because it's difficult in bodybuilding. It is. It's not an easy thing to get to the gym. It's not easy to follow a diet. It's not easy to reach a goal in the gym. But, you know, when you do, the rewarding feeling and that good feeling you get makes it easier to want to do that in other areas in your life, I feel like.
And the big thing about like bodybuilding in particular, as opposed to like maybe powerlifting or something like that, is it's not like you're just thinking about it while you're in the gym.
Yeah, no.
Like there's also the entire time outside the gym where you got to make sure you're eating the right stuff and you're drinking the water and sleeping the right amount of time. It's an entire lifestyle.
It is, yeah. The recovery, like you just said, it's a lot.
So I think to Ricky's point on working out for the mental side of it, I work out and I want to look better, but 99% of why I'm at the gym is strictly, I feel like it dials my head in. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like if I get up, I don't go to the gym, I go to work, I don't feel like I'm at 110%.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm operating at 90%, 80%. Like I'm not fully, I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's not cranked all the way up. But when I'm in the gym in the morning and I hit work, I feel like it's cranked all the way up and I'm rolling. To where it's like, that is what I've chased. And it definitely comes with, it does come with the side of getting in better shape and looking better. And I think that's a lot of how people look at you too, that you're somebody, you don't have to come up to me and tell me that you understand discipline. Like, I think that's something that when I look at somebody that's crazy overweight, I do not look at them and say discipline. Like, not in a negative way, but it is something.
Just something that, yeah.
It's something that
happens.
Like,
yeah.
I like finding people that, I mean, a lot of MMG people, like in the beginning, they're like, why? You guys look like you do push-ups all the time. You guys all work out. I'm like, yeah,
It's a good thing.
I see, like when I meet these people, like I know they have a work ethic. I know they have discipline. Those are characteristics that you can't just go teach people off the street.
Yeah.
You can't just grab someone off the street and change their whole entire lifestyle and be like, hey, I'm going to teach you work ethic and I'm going to teach you discipline and all this shit. Like, you're talking, that comes with years. And that's something that people either have or they don't. And that's that inner fire, I feel like.
Do you know who Andy Elliott is by chance?
I don't.
So he's an old car sales guy does sort of a. Is he a trainer? Does he train people on sales or
he does
sales
like sales
deals?
training. Like, I mean,
Okay.
So either way, he's been really blowing up on social media lately because he's really been leaning into it. And insane energy. They always have a ton of energy at the office. When people come in, they're like, they all swarm them out in the parking lot and they're like hyping them up, yelling, screaming and stuff like that. They're always listening to like Rob Bailey and like hardcore music and stuff. But anyways, they're all in pretty good shape or they're working towards it. And I'm pretty sure it's one of his rules that if you either don't have a six pack or you're not making progress towards a six pack, you're out. Like he draws such a hard line in there. And a big part of that is just because of that standard.
Because of the discipline.
You're exactly right.
And I mean, there's studies. I can't remember how many different endorphins and dopamine and all that stuff gets released. That's why they call it runner's high or whatever sport you do, lifting. I mean, it's incredible the amount of stuff that's released in your body that, you know, we talk about it. Oh, you feel it's. I mean, it's science behind it. You're actually releasing stuff in your body that makes you feel good after a workout.
And I don't think people ever. I think you start understanding your head more when you understand how to push your body harder.
Oh yeah.
I came off the couch to go run a half marathon at 275 pounds and not a runner at all. It was fucking miserable.
I bet.
Absolutely. And
sounds like
I mean,
Shit.
the thing was, like, I mean, my confidence level going into it, like, I never even had a fucking bit of doubt that it was going to be that hard. I'm like, everyone's like looking at me like, are you crazy? And at mile like 6, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what am I doing out here? And it was like the deepest, like, me versus me moment that I was like, I'm feeling like every muscle fiber in my legs. Like at mile 10 to 13, my legs were fully cramped out. You could see like every vein in my calves and everything. Like I ran 3 miles on fully cramped out legs. And I was like, if I quit, this will be the first thing I've ever quit at. And I'm like, I'm not a fucking quitter.
But that mental fortitude.
And it was that mental state of that push like through that I don't think people understand how far they can push their bodies. But it's like understanding how to push your head too and push yourself. And it's like, I feel that's what you find in the gym.
Yes.
Like I find that drive and that push that sometimes and I'm not saying every day I walk into the gym that I have it.
No.
There's some days that it, like when it clicks and it's something else.
And some days you're ready to get out. Yeah.
Yeah. Some days you're there for like 10 minutes. You're fuck. Like
I made it. Okay.
I'm here. I didn't miss. But I think it is that learning how to like challenge yourself more. And then you can, I think some people will learn that there. I don't think everyone learns how to translate that into their life though.
No, yeah.
I think some people learn how to translate that into life and learn how to actually challenge themselves in other aspects that I think it gives you a gift that you have to go use somewhere else. That when you can go start using that other places, it's really cool to see what you can do because then it's like, I can't do that.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of guys, and I've been in a similar boat myself where like they sleep, breathe, eat, the gym. Like it's the only thing they think about. They do everything right. They're like carrying around their gallon jug. When they go home at night, they're like watching videos of guys working out. When they wake up in the morning, they're like thinking about their workout. Everything's planned out, and they're so dialed in. But they don't ever translate it to anything else.
They get too stuck in that.
And that's all they're doing. And at some point, it's like, well, that's cool when you're in college and you don't have anything going on. You don't have any bills. But like at some point, you got to make some
learn
money.
how to juggle everything.
And a lot of guys, I feel like they kind of just totally give up on it to go do business or whatever it is. And it's if they can just slowly start to translate those same disciplines and strategies and structures into anything, really.
I mean, if you could take what a lot of guys hone in on the gym
and put that somewhere else
and just redirect it a little bit,
yeah.
dude, they can conquer the fucking world.
If you could be consistent for 5 years, like it really doesn't even matter what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean,
anything you put that amount of effort into, you're going to be successful.
go mow fucking yards. 5 years, I guarantee.
5 years,
you're-
and put in the
man.
amount of effort, you're going to be the best lawnmower out
Dude,
there.
you're gonna have like 25 guys. You're gonna have a huge fucking lawn landscape company.
Yeah.
Like, if you dedicated half the fucking time, like if at home at night instead of watching videos of dudes working out, watch videos of people mowing, like figuring out how to become a better landscaper. I don't know, like just watch the videos in the morning instead. Just dedicate half of it. Like
but finding a way to get that passion that you have, in other
and
areas.
it's crazy that you watch like Ricky at crazy valid point that you go sometimes that they just never translate it out of there. That they have all the key characteristics to go do something. They just need to find something to hone in on.
It's like the gym has just become their entire personality, which is fine, but it's like just like you can still do more and still be jacked.
And you can still go to the gym.
Yeah, you can do both.
You're probably going to be better off because you're not in the gym 4 hours a day every single day.
But in the future of Protein House, where do you see it progressing, and where are you trying to take it in the future?
So where I'm trying, like I said, I have 5 other partners that are up in Des Moines. They actually bought the rights to 10 stores, which it's like $40,000 a pop per store. So we have the rights to 7 more stores. So now that we've got them kind of on the right track, that's hopefully the progression here is throughout the Midwest that we open up those other 7 stores. We've already. I mean, we obviously got to pay for the build out, but we've already paid for the rights to put 7 more stores out here. So that's kind of where we see things in the future is, continuing to build on what we've done in the last year here and building the sales out here and making more money. But now that we are on track, I think we've been looking. Right now, we've already been looking at a few places, one up in Waukee, up near Des Moines. We've kind of been looking around the area here, kind of looking at St. Louis. So, that's kind of the next step is let's grow let's scale this thing up and get them up to 10 stores. And
Hell yeah.
Very cool.
so
That's legit.
That's the plan.
It's nice already having the rights to more stores.
Yeah, we already have the rights because it's $40,000 a store, just for the rights. So that's already been paid for when they set up the initial contract. So
Hell yeah. So towards the end, I just noticed on time. Towards the end of every podcast, we always like to ask like our final question of if you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be? See, we get a real loaded question right at the end. Catch you off guard.
Patience. I wasn't as patient when I was 20. If I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, giving myself a little bit more patience, I feel like I would have gotten a lot further in a lot of different areas of my life. I think patience.
So are you saying patience on like a micro scale or macro scale, like in the moment, like reacting to things, or so like the patience to have like the follow through on your plans and stuff like that?
I think both. Okay. I think sometimes I was a little bit quicker to anger on quicker to react to things. And I feel like my life has gotten better. Even when I talk about relationships, relationships in my 20s, man, I feel like they were much more violent, but now me and my wife, I mean, we don't even fight. We get along so well. And it's because I feel like that patience is there. I feel like my management style is much better as I'm more patient with my employees, as I'm more understanding with them. But yeah, I feel like, I'm Taurus. I'm a little bit bullhead. I feel like in my 20s when I was younger, I was a little bit more abrasive. I wasn't quite as patient. So yeah, if I could go back, I feel like I could have saved a lot of time when I was basically churning the wheel in my 20s where I could have pushed things a lot further.
Yeah. I mean, I struggled with patience for a while. And we were actually talking about today on a call about, I think a lot of it's emotion driven. And I think when you let emotions drive quick reaction, I think a lot of times you don't make the correct choices. You make emotional decisions, and I don't think emotional decisions are always the best decisions. And it can in both ways. And when you're angry, you say things that a lot of times you don't mean. And it's like, I think that having that patience of taking a step back and saying, hey,
Think about it for a second.
Yeah, think about it for a minute. Give me 10 minutes. Then we'll handle it. So sometimes just handling that out of instant, having that patience, that's a huge thing. Yeah. And it's something I actively work on still to date.
It seems like a simple concept when you're sitting here talking about it.
It's very difficult.
Until it's time to do it, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect at it now, but I just wish I would have started it maybe younger at 20 when we talk about that. I
agree with that.
I feel like the more I work at it, the better my life gets. I feel like when I take an active role in trying to think about situations and not react emotionally, like you were saying, I feel like things go much better in my life. But when I start getting emotional and I react, I feel like that's when things snowball. That's where things, become more difficult in my life.
And I think it's just having that self-awareness to say like, hey, this is something that I need to focus on. That it's like having that self-awareness when those things are happening, like having that trigger of something like the second I think this way, I need a trigger to step back.
Yeah.
And
I think it's difficult for a lot of people. I think it is difficult. A lot of people don't want to admit, oh, wait, I have a problem here. I need to, work on this. And
it's nobody ever wants to admit that they have a problem. And I don't look at it as like having a problem. Like I don't have a problem with the way I react, but it's like, is there a better way I could?
Yeah.
100%. Like, and that's why I think it's getting better and like always progressing forward and what your style is of anything that you're doing. That's being a manager. Like there's managers out there that I watched. I was like, I still watch today and I'm like, he's good. Like really good. But it's like you watch how they handle a situation that is just like with ease, that there was every bit of that patience in there of like the way that it was done that I'm like, and I see it really quick in businesses that we're with, that I can see something happen. I see the body language. I see how a manager reacts to something. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, that's a good manager. Or I could see really quick the way that they just like unleash on somebody really fast. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, and then like, yeah, we got an employee problem. Can you fucking believe that? And I'm like, oh no, totally can't believe that.
Wonder where that comes from. Whoa.
But I'll never forget my first GM used to he would get mad when he used to throw staplers like against the back of the kitchen wall and they would like bust open and he would start like and everybody be scared. They'd be like, oh, Scott's mad again. Everybody like be on your best behavior. And but I think that triggered me from my first manager being that way. I said, I'm never going to be like that if I ever become a manager. And I've never been that way. I've said, you know what? I'm going to be able to keep my composure and keep my cool because the littlest things would set him off. And, it's a high stress environment in restaurants. You got to line out the door. You're busy. Something goes wrong. Someone makes a mistake. You've got to be able to have that patience to be able to keep your cool and make those decisions and keep everybody on board. Hey, we got this.
Because you still got a line full of tickets.
You still got more coming in there. But I had some managers as a teenager and there are plenty of managers still out there where, again, that not patient, they just immediately, they start yelling at everybody, blaming everyone. They make everybody uncomfortable. And then the whole rest of the shift it's shit. I mean, everyone's upset, everyone's frustrated. And so that's why I've always tried to continue to work on that. I feel like, especially in a management position, I think the more calm you are, the more you think about your reactions, the more people trust in you, the more people, respect you. So
100%. Couldn't agree with that more. I very much like working on patience. I think there's a lot of people out there that need to focus on that. I think everyone can get better at it. But very, very, very much appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm glad Ricky ran into you. This was my first evening meeting you, so super glad this all panned out and worked out to get you on. We will tag everything for Protein House below. If you're running around Kansas City, make sure that you're checking out Protein House. If you want to eat healthier, which everyone needs to eat healthier, including myself.
Yeah, stop it. Mention the podcast. I'll give you 15% off when you come in too.
Perfect. Hey, there we go.
There we go. We got drops here. So thank you very, very much. So
thank you.
That's the M3 podcast. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.